Bam, what up, Yang Gang? Welcome back to the Trickle Up. We got some more news for you today. What do you got on the low for us tonight, Mia?
Today, we're going to be talking about how the Oklahoma governor is banning critical race, gender-based theory in public schools and universities. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill into law Friday that restricts how race and gender-based content can be taught in public schools and universities. Now more than ever, we need policies that bring us closer together, not rip us apart, the Republican governor said. I firmly believe that not 1 cent of taxpayer money should be used to define and divide young Oklahomans by their race or sex. The bill, 1775, passed through the state's legislature with overwhelming support. It prohibits the teaching that one race or sex is inherently superior to another, and that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. Supporters of the bill believe it prevents racial stereotypes, while opponents note that it could have a dampening effect on discussions about race and gender discrimination. I happen to be in that second camp.
Well, let's define critical race theory, right? First and foremost. It's an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States who seek to critically examine the law as it intersects with issues of race and to challenge mainstream liberal approaches to racial justice. It examines social, cultural, and legal issues as they relate to race and racism. Sounds like a good approach to because it's all about reforms. And they're trying to say, don't point out the differences because it applies to us all the same, which it clearly doesn't. And so that's kind of like they're trying to say, I don't see color type of thing, which is outdated to me.
I'm assuming you guys want my take on this.
Absolutely, Rio.
Okay. I have kind of a middle ground centrist perspective on this. I do think that social justice is important. I believe that the liberal approach to social justice, which is that the government should treat people equally under the law and that you should judge people as individuals by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, as MLK famously put it, is the right approach. That said, I do also believe in free speech, and I think that people who have a more illiberal approach to the issue of social justice have a right to express their opinions. We just have to keep in mind that students in elementary school, for example, their critical thinking skills aren't fully developed yet. Some people make it into their 40s and still don't have those, you guys. So yeah, we just have to be careful that we are exposing people to a variety of opinions and have open debate and respect free speech, and that we're not just indoctrinating people with one ideology and penalizing people for disagreeing.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're trying to outlaw one side of the discussion, which is just typical.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think you should outlaw either side. We just have to make sure that if it is being taught in public schools, that people are not only being taught with that one perspective, especially because, frankly, it really is rather radical. It's a different approach to social justice. It is, as it says in that description you just read, explicitly runs contrary to the liberal approach to this, which used to be considered progressive just 5 years ago. So I think, we should be careful before we throw the baby out with the bathwater on something like liberalism.
The governor himself isn't using any of those decent arguments.
Well, I'm willing to bet he probably doesn't like the liberal form either. So we'll stipulate that.
His claim is that the law will prevent young children from being labeled as oppressors or made to feel guilt and shame, which none of those things inherently do. So outlawing them doesn't actually fix that problem in any way. So if that was the conclusion, that would be valid, in my opinion.
I have some personal experience with this because my day job is for a nonprofit in the LGBT sector. Oh, did we lose me? Did my connection cut
Uh-oh.
out or something?
No, you're good. I think Mia's freezing up for a second here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I hope you come back, but if you can still hear me. I mean, I have some personal experience with that because my day job is working for a nonprofit in the LGBT sector. And in certain circles, a certain kind of conferences and so forth, you will hear people tell you that if you were born white or born as a man, then you are inherently oppressive and that you can never rid yourself of that, and that you're not allowed to express opinions on certain topics and so forth. And I do think that there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party, a lot of people who consider themselves progressive in the Democratic Party, worried that some of that might be going a little bit too far. But I think it's safe to say that this governor doesn't like the lip form of social justice either. So, I'm not speaking for him or in defense of his law, which I haven't read.
Right. And that's what I'm referring to specifically is what Boyce defined there, which
Right.
is critical race theory and the things that they are outlining. Not anything taken out of other things. In our schools, this stuff is not being taught in the way that he is presenting that it's being taught. That's just not happening.
Yeah, they're
None
mischaracterized.
of that is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, they all want to control the narrative by framing it. That's typical. That's normal everyday politics right there. But when it comes out to when policy becomes applied is the problem. And I understand the point of just because you're born cisgender white male that you're the oppressor is not like I never take that personally because it's not talking about me. It's the systemic policies that have divided us and created a class of people that are so poor that you really don't have much infrastructure, any kind of support around it. That's why we had affirmative action. That's why we had the HBCUs. They were necessary. They're created out of necessity, not because of willy-nilly, oh, let's do this. It's out of necessity. So that's where I kind of come into it. It's like, I don't take this shit personally. Like, all cisgender white male, blah, blah, blah. I get it, but I don't take it personally. Because I got some thick damn skin, I've been called, yeah. So it doesn't really bother me. But I do.
There is something ironic about seeing alt-right trolls whining and talking about how they have special victim status. Certainly, a little hypocritical of them to do that. Yeah.
It's hard to play victim when you have all the privileges. Like I have privileges, guys. I was born white, male, straight in the United States in 1975. That's something I didn't earn. The benefit of the doubt of driving or with crime. I'm a felon that never got caught drinking and driving in the military. That's the facts.
Well, so you're not a felon. You might have been.
I have the same characteristics and habits as a felon that just didn't get caught. Drinking and driving when I was in the military. Holy cow. Yeah.
You committed felonies, you just weren't caught for them.
That's what I'm saying. And I'll say this, maybe or maybe not, we can't prove it. Maybe I got looked over because of my color of my skin. You know what I mean? It's possible.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to point out that that individuals are prejudiced. I mean, there have been studies that have shown that all people of all races and sexes have a tendency toward prejudice against certain demographics. And that's just human nature. There are evolutionary psychological explanations for it. The important thing, though, is to know that you should try to rise above it and live up to the better angels of our nature, as Abraham Lincoln famously put it. Sorry, I want to say one other thing because you did bring me on to offer a different perspective. So I will do this. What you're talking about, certain kinds of privilege, I think there really is something to that idea. I think that there is also something to other ideas. There are different things that contribute to, if you're talking about like statistical outcomes being different, et cetera, some part of that is attributed to prejudice and to what you might call systemic prejudice, especially historically, right? I mean, it was, I remember throwing a party to celebrate when same-sex marriage was finally legalized through the Supreme Court. That was very recent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just objectively true that the government was systemically prejudiced against same-sex couples up until that happened, right? So I think it's important to celebrate progress, because if we forget that we have made progress and that the liberal approach to social justice did pay dividends, then we might make a mistake and possibly throw the baby out with the bathwater and give up on a technique that has been working. And it's also important to remember too, we'll never live in a utopia, right? There will always be problems in the world. That doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to be better. But anybody who tries to tell you because liberalism hasn't brought about a utopia yet, we should try something like communism or fascism, as populists are advocating on both extremes right now, they might be selling you a bag of goods. I'm not telling you what to think, but I'm just saying take that into consideration.
I will tell people what to think. Communism is horrible.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Is horrible.
Yes, both are bad.
Horrible. Could you imagine? Like, people say
consensus achieved. Andrew Yang says I'm a human capitalist, doesn't he? He knows he knows what's up.
But here's the difference, guys. I'm a human capitalist, Andrew Yang phrase, right? But he doesn't see humans as capital.
Sure.
That's the difference between capitalism, communism. They both see you in the same way. You're a means of production for the higher ups to make the most money possible. Look at the CCP, look at Russia. They had a communism thing, but the people at the bottom all got the bare necessities, which was what they say. It's what they say you're good enough for, while they get richer than rich. They're the top 1% of the 1%. It's the same result, guys. It's just a bullshit way of getting it.
It's also the poor regular person was a larger percentage of the population, and the elites were a smaller percentage of the population. Here in the United States, which is a mixed economy with a fairly generous social safety net, right? We have a much more gradual increase where we have a fairly robust middle class and so forth. There is the problem with the gap between the middle class and the super rich is indeed growing right now. The gap between the poor and the middle class actually has still been continues to shrink, which is good progress. But the gap between the middle class and the rich is getting out of control. And I think the middle class and the poor have common cause there. And something to keep in mind is some of these culture wars. Like, why did that governor pass that law? Is it because he really cares about it? Maybe. Is it because he believes in any of the traditional liberal arguments that I made? I doubt it. I think it's because he's trying to divide people. I think that culture wars are a useful way of dividing Americans against each other so that we don't work together to solve problems.
Well, think about the wording they used. If you use critical race theory, it's racist. What? And I get, so what it is projection. By not having it, it's a racist system. By putting it in, that's racist. So it's just typical bullshit, right?
If people are being taught that all white people are inherently prejudiced and should never be allowed to express opinions about issues of race, for example, if they are shutting down debate, that would be a problem. Free speech does have to go both ways. So
I can all but guarantee you that is not something that is happening in Oklahoma state schools. I can.
That's a valid point. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that. Maybe in Silicon Valley private schools, maybe. As a conservative who is registered as a Democrat and who voted, I actually intended to vote for Andrew Yang, but he dropped out before he made it to California. So I ended up voting for Biden, which was mainly an anti-Sanders vote, because at that point it looked like it was either going to be Biden or Sanders. Everybody had dropped out and endorsed Biden. So that's what I did. And then I voted for Biden in the general election against Trump, because I don't believe that the new alt-right movement, this kind of economic populism with its protectionism and its isolationism, doesn't really represent the kind of fiscally conservative, foreign policy conservative that I am. So in that context, I think it's important to remember conservative is not a synonym for Republican, and liberal is not a synonym for Democrat. There are relatively liberal Republicans like Mitt Romney, who looks like he's going to be voted out because he did the right thing, and how dare he. And there are conservative Democrats, and there used to be a time when there were more of those, and that probably was a good thing for the body politic. So let's and there are illiberal Democrats on the far left who push communism, for example.
Oh yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So just like there are fascists on the alt right who I think you could argue. Maybe you might call them right wing, but you certainly wouldn't call them conservative. What are they conserving? They're trying to destroy democracy. So, the coalitions are a lot more complex than the binary would have us think. And Andrew Yang is a great candidate for reminding us of that, because he has an appeal across all over, from center left to center right.
And that's why we need ranked choice voting. Period.
Agreed.
I'll also note that Yang has an ability to piss off people across the board in weird places, in very strange ways.
Yeah,
and he's still the front runner for mayor of New York. So we'll see.
Well, I will be going in June. I'll be live streaming that bad boy. I can't wait.
Nice.
But yeah, guys, let us know what you think about that in the comment section. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys later. And like always, gang gang.